Good morning. Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks to everyone for coming today to Brain Injury Awareness Day and for being the public face of brain injury in this hallowed place. A big welcome to people with lived experience of brain injury. Let's look to our right and our left and congratulate each other for being here today. And also to people who work in the field of neurorehabilitation, and to our legislators and staff who understand the challenges we face and the lives that we can achieve if given the chance. So I'm Drew Nagel. I'm a neuropsychologist by training and have been working side by side with many of you over these last 40 years. Over that time, we've seen big changes in the brain injury community, in how people are served, and how people get back to living meaningful lives in the community. The emphasis nowadays, once people are medically stable, is on getting back to life, even if that means doing a different kind of work or having a different kind of role in your family. When we speak about acquired brain injury, we're referring to an insult to the brain resulting directly or indirectly from trauma, from anoxia, vascular lesions, tumors, toxins, infection, any of which are not degenerative or congenital in nature, but which result in a diminished or altered state of consciousness. A result of this injury is impairment of cognitive abilities or physical functioning, which can then result in disturbance of behavioral or emotional functioning and can cause partial or total functional disability. Perhaps the biggest change we've seen in acquired brain injury since we all came together in this rotunda last year is a change in how people who have experienced brain injury are counted. Yes, the numbers of people who are living with brain injury. For years, we have relied on data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the way they used to count brain injuries was by obtaining diagnostic data from hospitals. In recent years, we all have become more aware of how brain injury is overrepresented in some social service systems compared with the prevalence in the general population, and that many people who experience brain injury never even get to a hospital. For instance, in mental health settings, brain injury is found to be twice as prevalent as in the general population, and in substance abuse settings, 3 times as common. The same is found in domestic violence and those who are unhoused. Recent work that we're doing at the Brain Injury Association with Mount Sinai in New York shows that in Pennsylvania correction settings, brain injury is 6 times as common as it is in the general population. Most of these brain injuries found in these settings are undiagnosed and therefore untreated, and thus have resulted in poor outcomes. So all of this recent work has led the CDC to revise its methods for counting people, and now they have switched to a household survey methodology. And they have published just this year the results that brain injury is much more common than any of us actually thought. The CDC now tells us there are 64 million people in the US living with the effects of a traumatic brain injury. And if anybody wants the data on that, there's a fact sheet back on our Brain Injury Association table showing where those numbers come from. So what does this mean for us here in Pennsylvania? If we take those numbers and extrapolate them to our population here in Pennsylvania, it means there are probably 2.7 million Pennsylvanians living with some type of acquired brain injury, either caused by force or by internal causes. That means that 2.7 million of our neighbors, friends, and families are facing a wide range of challenges, from cognitive to behavioral, emotional difficulties, which, if left untreated, can result in life-altering disability. Our Pennsylvania Brain Injury Coalition has been working hard to help our legislators, and especially those in the Pennsylvania Brain Injury Caucus, to understand these challenges and how their lives can be made better. These legislators have responded by introducing legislation that will improve access to care, ensure fair rates of payment for treatment providers, provide support for the work of the Brain Injury Association, recognize communication impairments for drivers, require helmets for scooter riders and the most vulnerable motorcyclists, and improve the Commonwealth's Pioneer Safety in Youth Sports Act. There's a handout on the Brain Injury Coalition table back there. It looks like this, that summarizes all the bills that are currently under consideration in the Pennsylvania legislature to improve the lives of people with brain injury. We've printed enough of these for everybody here to have 3 copies, and when you meet with your legislator over the next couple of hours, leave a copy with each of them and ask them to sign on to the bills that we all feel are important. The handout lists a title of each bill, a summary of what the bill will achieve, and who will benefit from the bill or action. We're so proud of our Pennsylvania legislators who are you're about to hear from today, who really understand what people living with brain injury are experiencing and who are using their tools as our elected officials to improve your lives. So now I would like to invite each of them to briefly share with you how they see the needs and opportunities through legislation going forward. And we're going to start with Representative Ann Flood, who serves Pennsylvania's 138th legislative district, covering parts of Northampton County. Representative Flood is a co-chair of the House Brain Injury Caucus and is also co-sponsor of HB 444, ensuring access to post-acute rehabilitation. Ann is a huge supporter of people with disabilities. I had the good fortune of spending Saturday with you at your Special Needs Expo in Easton, where each year she brings together dozens of government, nonprofit, and provider organizations to talk with constituents about their services and supports they offer, this year including the Brain Injury Association. So please welcome Representative Flood.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this very important day. It's an honor to stand here with advocates, survivors, families, and professionals who are the heartbeat of Pennsylvania's brain injury community. Brain injuries are among the most complex and devastating medical challenges a person can face, yet they're often invisible, making them harder to recognize and address. They affect every part of life: health, independence, and the ability to fully participate in family and community. That's why I'm proud to support legislation that strengthens our understanding, treatment, and prevention of brain injuries across Pennsylvania. As co-chair of the bipartisan Pennsylvania Brain Injury Caucus, this work holds a special place in my heart. My connection began long before I became a legislator. My daughter, Lauren, sustained a brain injury at birth due to a placental abruption. She unexpectedly passed away at just 4 years old from a seizure when she slept, but her life continues to inspire everything that I do. In her memory, I founded Lauren's Hope Foundation to benefit children with brain injuries. We help children access therapeutic services and equipment that insurance doesn't cover and provide family networking. And we started the therapeutic hypothermia therapy program at Riley Children's Hospital at Lehigh Valley Health Network, which is part of Jefferson Health Network now, for babies who have sustained hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy at birth. These are vital resources that can change lives. Her story is a constant reminder of why we must keep pushing forward. Nevertheless, Lauren's journey opened my eyes to the urgent need to access to quality rehabilitation and long-term support. Recovery doesn't stop at the hospital doors. It's a lifelong process, and families need help every step of the way. That's why I co-sponsored House Bill 444, which is so critical. It would require commercial health insurance to cover post-acute neurorehabilitation as a standard benefit. This legislation gives survivors a fair chance to recover, reduces long-term costs, and ensures families don't have to fight insurance companies while fighting for their loved ones' recovery. Too often, families face the impossible choice between paying for essential therapy out of pocket or going without. House Bill 444 ensures that no family has to make that choice. It's about fairness, equity, and giving every survivor a real chance at recovery. To my colleagues in the General Assembly, I encourage you to join me as a co-sponsor for House Bill 444. Your support can help thousands of Pennsylvanians access the care they need to rebuild their lives. But our work doesn't stop here. The Brain Injury Caucus is also focused on other important initiatives. We're advancing efforts to create a dedicated state budget line item for essential brain injury services. Programs like neuro-resource facilitation, brain injury education and training and support groups, and the State Advisory Council. Currently, these programs rely on unstable funding sources such as traffic violation surcharges. A dedicated budget line item would provide the consistency these programs deserve and the security families can count on. We're also working on legislation like House Bill 1268, which allows individuals to add emergency contacts and medical conditions to their driving record. This ensures that first responders and others have access to critical medical information in an emergency, potentially saving lives. House Bill 1269 would establish a brain injury advisory board within the Department of Health to ensure the voices of survivors and families directly inform state policies, a step toward more thoughtful, effective programs. Together, these efforts move us closer to a system that truly serves those affected by brain injuries, one that supports recovery, independence, and dignity. Raising awareness is just as important as passing laws. Events like this keep issues front and center, reminding all of us in state government that the work we do has a real impact on lives. We've made meaningful progress, but there's still more to be done. Every bill we advance, every dollar that we invest, and every awareness campaign we promote brings us one step closer to ensuring a brain injury does not define anyone's future. Together, we can build a commonwealth where survivors have the opportunity to recover, thrive, and live with dignity, and where every family knows they are not alone. As I look around this room today, I'm reminded of the incredible dedication of this community. Thank you all for being here, for sharing your stories, and for continuing to advocate for this cause. Your voices are powerful, essential, and inspirational, helping to transform lives. Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership, Representative Flood. So next, I'd like to introduce Senator Tim Carney, who serves District 26, parts of Delaware County. Senator Carney co-chairs the Senate Brain Injury Caucus and is a prime sponsor of SB 318, ensuring access to post-rehab care, as well as SB 1008, known as Abby's Law, providing for electric scooter safety. Please welcome Senator Carney to tell us more.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. I'm honored to have served as co-chair in the Senate for the Brain Injury Caucus for the past 4 sessions. My co-chair, Senator Frank Ferry from Bucks County, had a family emergency this morning that he was taking care of, so that's why he's not with us today. Now, every year I come here, I tell the same story, but it's a story that's important to hear, and it's really about the impact a single constituent can have. So my role as the co-chair really came about because of one of the first constituents to walk into my office, my district office, after I was elected. The individual was still recovering from the impact of a traumatic brain injury from years earlier and struggling to get a job or really to find his place in society. It took time, work, and patience, but with the work of the Brain Injury Coalition, we were able to get him the supports that he needed. For this individual, it took time for him to be able to get on the road to recovery, but for others, it can be a matter of running out of coverage for their treatment. That's why Senator Ward and I have introduced Senate Bill 318, the companion of my House Caucus's co-chair's Bill 444. This legislation would ensure commercial health insurers include coverage for post-acute neurorehabilitation in their policies. Guaranteeing coverage means that for 18,800 Pennsylvanians who acquire new brain injuries each year that require hospitalization, that they're not discharged without the adequate follow-up care that they need. This is care that will allow individuals to resume their lives without the need for long-term services and supports, many of which are underwritten by last resort funding from the Commonwealth. Meaning this legislation not only improves individuals' lives, but will also reduce the cost burden for the Commonwealth by substantially lowering long-term care obligations. I'm dedicated to getting this bill across the finish line, and this is the top priority for the Brain Injury Caucus and Coalition. So again, thank you all for coming here today and for your continued advocacy for increasing support for those dealing with brain injury. It's through the work of the caucus, the coalition, and the tireless work of individuals like my former constituent, pre-redistricting, Candace Gant, that we can all accomplish our goals. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Carney, for your leadership. And next, I'd like to introduce you to Representative Tim Briggs, representing House District 149, covering parts of Montgomery County. Representative Briggs serves as the Democratic chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, as well as co-chair for the House Brain Injury Caucus. He was largely responsible for Pennsylvania's pioneer legislation called the Safety in Youth Sports Act, which requires that youth be removed from play after a concussion and be properly evaluated. He's now looking to amend and improve that bill by making it apply to more youth sports and to include school reentry. He is the prime sponsor on HB 444, ensuring access to post-acute rehabilitation. Please welcome Chairman Briggs to tell us more.
Thank you, Drew, and thank you, Representative Flood, for the partnership. I also want to acknowledge Representative Fees here, who helps us a lot with the caucus, and Senator Carney and Ferry are great partners in the Senate. I think I met Drew a while ago, 15, 16, 17 years ago. I had a young son who played football for a short period of time, and I had mothers coming to me my first term in office, like surprised that I was letting my son play football. It's a great sport, but he was young, and they were talking to me about brain injuries, and I shrugged it off, as many of us did 20 years ago, about, you know, what's the big deal? Coaches would talk about magic dirt. Oh, just rub some magic dirt on your injury, and including brain injuries. And Drew and a bunch of folks educated me on the significance of just the mild brain injury, concussions. And we learned so much in the last 15, 16, 17 years. It really is amazing. That bill that we introduced, we worked with Senator Brown, bipartisan approach. I think at the end of the day, it was almost unanimous, both House and Senate. It took us a couple years. And it was pioneering. It was something that a number of other states took our language that we spent hours and hours working on and introducing it and passing it ahead of us, but we took credit for the language that they copied. This year, we will be introducing an update to that to really expand the sports and the activities that not just sports, but outside of school activities, and really try to hit on what the most important thing with recovery is. When is it the best time? We focus then on when is the safest time to get back to your activity, but it really is when it's the best time to get back to learning. And as we learn so much about brain injuries, that is something that we need to update the law to address. We also are working on the post-acute care bill. That's another personal story that interested me. A family member had, and we have great health insurance, right, Senator Carney? We are benefits of wonderful taxpayer-paid insurance that our constituents, I think, want us to have. But a family member had a pretty mild head bang and went to the emergency room and realized it was more serious than what it would have thought. And even our insurance was limited to the type of coverage, type of care that she could get. So this bill would really expand, make insurance be able to provide the service needed to get the patient the care that they so desperately need and to get their lives back as quickly as possible. Another bill that I don't think's on the list, but we moved out of the Judiciary Committee last year, just in that mood of learning so much, is Representative Carol Hill Evans' House Bill 458 regarding inmates who are veterans that either were diagnosed with PTSD or possibly traumatic brain injury during their service, would be able to tap into a post-conviction relief act to allow the sentencing judge, to reconsider their sentence with that new evidence that they had. They get incarcerated, they start receiving services. Maybe they learned that their TBI was something affected their behavior. Maybe it had something to do with the act that they performed that sent them to prison. But just in that vein of just continuously learning more and more about our brains, the science, Dr. Nagel really displayed just the number of people that are suffering from brain injuries, acquired brain injuries, that we need to continuously update our policies and our laws to address that. And that's what today is so important. If you all educate our colleagues, make them more aware of the importance of dealing with these issues, it makes our job much easier to advance these legislations. These things, though they're not complicated, there are opposition to either spending the money, providing the coverage. Insurance industry may not want to expand that coverage. It's competing interests with our state budget always. So the more you talk to your legislators about the importance and the steps, the priorities that we have laid out in the document, the more success we will have of asking our leaders and our committees to take up these bills. So the awareness is critical. Your activism is critical. I know we all have limited amount of time, but what you're doing today really is special, and it will make Pennsylvania a more compassionate, caring place to deal with our family, our neighbors, and our loved ones and yourselves. So thank you so much for having me, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Briggs, and thank you for your leadership. Next, I'd like to introduce to you a person with lived experience of brain injury, Melissa Carmen. Melissa is the person responsible for organizing and making all the arrangements for today with the staff from the Brain Injury Caucus, and has been working on this for several years now. We can't even count them. So thank you for your efforts, Melissa. Melissa has a long list of accomplishments, so I'm not going to read them all, but the ones most important to me are that she volunteers with the Pennsylvania Brain Injury Coalition. She provides leadership of her brain injury support group in her hometown, and she volunteers for the Brain Injury Association of Pennsylvania's Brain Injury Resource Line, which helps connect people to services and supports. So please join me in welcoming Melissa Carmen.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here today for our 6th annual Brain Injury Awareness Day. My name is Melissa Carmen, and I stand here before you not only as a survivor, but as an advocate for every individual who has impacted with brain injury. I'm going to educate on why language matters. Knowing the correct language in brain injury is most important when lobbying to the General Assembly in regards to funding, services, and awareness. Acquired brain injury is the umbrella over top of non-traumatic brain injury and traumatic brain injury. Non-traumatic brain injury is, but not limited to, a stroke, heart attack, alcoholism, opiate overdose, aneurysm, epilepsy, hypoxia, and anoxia. A traumatic brain injuries are falls, vehicle accidents, sports injuries, an explosion, gunshot wound, and direct force to the head. Both are equally important. Not funding is all the same. For example, if I fall by the poolside, I sustain a traumatic brain injury. But if you drown and sustain a anoxia brain injury, and yet I would get the funding, an anoxia brain injury falls under the umbrella of non-traumatic brain injury, and that funding is limited. We all know, but both brain injuries are just as important. This is why when advocating about brain injury language and advocacy are so critical. Traumatic brain injury categories are mild traumatic brain injury, which is a concussion, moderate, a person in a coma, severe coma lasting 7 days or longer. Persons with brain injury have many of the same obstacles: vestibular dysfunctional, behavior changes, sexuality changes, cognitive impairment, sensory overload. These challenges are invisible to many, but they are shaped every aspect of daily life. Legislator called to action. This is why we are so adamant about passing the Commercial Insurance Health Bill Post-Acute Neurorehabilitation for Cognitive Therapy, CRT. We respectfully ask every legislator to be a co-signer of House Bill 444 or Senate Bill 318. This bill is not optional. It is essential for brain injury survivors to reclaim their lives. On October 17, 1993, my life changed forever. At the age of 16 years old, I was involved in a single motor vehicle accident, only 1 block from home. My vehicle struck a telephone pole and I was rushed to the trauma unit at Lancaster General Hospital. I slipped into a coma for 7 days. Fighting for my life, my body was paralyzed. The physicians drilled a hole in my skull to relieve the pressure. Doctors diagnosed me of a severe traumatic brain injury damaging the brain stem, frontal lobe, and right hemisphere. When I finally awoke, the battle was only beginning. I was soon transferred to Hershey Medical Center, where I did my rehabilitation. My right side regained feeling, but my left side remained paralyzed. I had to relearn everything all over again: how to walk, talk, eat, dress, and toileting, and even recognizing objects and colors. Step by step, I progressed from a wheelchair to a walker to a cane to eventually to walking on my own. Through faith in Christ, I found the strength to keep going. On December 3rd of '93, I was discharged from the hospital. Just weeks later, I returned to school as a sophomore, determined not to let my injuries define me. I faced endless obstacles, with no filter and much frustration trying to rebuild my identity. In 1996, I graduated high school with honors, earning my diploma in business. Fast forward, 29 years later, I encountered one of the most exceptional experiences of my recovery at CPRS in Elizabethtown. The month of August 2024 to the end of May 25, four incredible professionals, 3 physical therapists and 1 assistant, Kevin, Aiden, Haley, and Tish, gave me not only their experience, their expertise, but their empathy. They took the time to understand who I was with a brain injury, recognizing my emotions were when overstimulated, or when I have cognitive impairment, and supporting me through the challenges. The patience and dedication reminded me there are some amazing professionals out there with care who deeply about their patients. I began attending physical therapy for vision therapy. At this time, my current ophthalmologist at Redmond Eye Care, who I have seen since my release from the hospital in '93, couldn't do any more with my eyes because he didn't specialize in brain injury. So I was referred to see a neuro-ophthalmologist. Insurance wasn't a barrier. No one took the state insurance I have, so I had to pay out of pocket. And yet I was determined to find understanding to root of my eye problems, which stirred up vestibular dysfunctional and cognitive issues regularly. I found a practice who specialized in vision therapy and rehabilitation. It was a private practice called Pursuit Vision Center in Lancaster. Their practice knew a little about brain injury. As I continued their tests, the physicians took the time to listen to everything I've told her. She was astounded, and I was already doing things with my eyes that in vision therapy a person is taught. After the testing was finished, my report of the findings was documented. They found the new findings, and the results were to treat with vision therapy. As I agreed with the doctor, the therapy would be helpful. Unfortunately, I refused to pay out of pocket. I told her one of my concerns is when the barometric pressure lowers, that my vestibular and cognitive becomes more impaired. Unfortunately, not a whole lot of help in this area since its nature, and of course, we as individuals need to find solution. I was able to take the documents to my current PT at CPRS, and they updated to new findings. The entire time they changed up the exercises that would best suit my needs because I was making positive improvement. For 31 years, I was a patient of Redmond Eye Care. One day, I made a visit to simply say thank you and to get my glasses adjusted, but the optician refused to see me because she said I stressed her out. A week later, I received a letter in the mail dismissing me from the practice. This was devastating. I was still under the medical care for eyes and had been referred to neuro-ophthalmology by them. After decades of loyalty, I was suddenly excluded. I was frustrated with working hard to better my eyesight, to make progress, and yet they could care less of me getting better. They wanted me to stay injured to treat. I shared this dismissal letter with CPRS Physical Therapy. My therapist, Haley, read it, and she was shocked. Unlike the coldness I have just experienced, she showed me compassion. Together, we agreed on a plan. I could no longer rely on eyeglasses during therapy. Instead, we would focus on vision therapy exercises to retrain my eyesight. Twice a week, I worked diligently, combining mindfulness and determination. Every exercise Haley gave me, I did faithfully. The results were life-changing. By the end of May, I was discharged from therapy, and I no longer have diplopia, which is double vision, and no longer need bifocals to see little print. For the first time when I drove, I could see the trees, the grass, the sky, and the beauty of God's creation clearly without glasses. I cried tears of joy. After years to struggle filing my severe traumatic brain injury, I had regained something I thought I lost forever. I still live with near light sensitivity, and that may never fully resolve, but I am profoundly grateful for the progress I've made. My story is proof that therapy for brain injury patients is not only medically important, it is life-changing. Compassionate care, determination, and faith can restore more than vision. They can restore hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, for sharing your story with us. And I think it is a point that people may need services episodically throughout their lifetime, depending on their circumstances and what is required of them at each time. So not only do people need the right therapy at the right time initially, but ongoing as well. So I'm looking around for Senator Ward. Does anybody see her? If not, I'm going to just hold up this handout, which is available on the Brain Injury Coalition table back there. And I want to point out that this is about House Bill 444 and Senate Bill 318, both of which have similar goals, and we'd be happy if either one of them passed, right? So, okay, doesn't matter which one. But there are some talking points on the back of this handout, and I'd like you to familiarize yourself with the talking points for your meetings with your legislators. The first is that people who survive acquired brain injury face a wide range of challenges, which, if left untreated, can result in life-altering disability. Second, a brain injury can occur to any of us, regardless of age, gender, socioeconomic status, ethnicity, sexual preference. It could happen to any of us at any time. A brain injury affects not only the individual, but also their families, their employers, and the entire community. Post-acute neurorehabilitation is proven by the research to be able to help improve people's functioning in everyday life, to get back to work, and to have quality and meaningful lives. People who acquire brain injury are frequently unable to access those evidence-based treatments because they don't have the right insurance or the right resources, or there's limits on their insurance. Without access to these treatments, long-term disability increases, and that puts extra burden on the state, which we're fortunate in the state to have long-term services and supports, but that item as an expense to the state keeps going up and up every year, and it may not be sustainable forever. So important to get people a resource early on to decrease their need for long-term services and supports. Another talking point is that hardworking Pennsylvanians should not have to become impoverished, in other words, to qualify for Medicaid in order to apply for some of these state-funded long-term services and supports. A recent study at Brandeis University shows that the state could save an average of $1.5 million per person served on long-term services and supports if they were able to access the appropriate service at the time when it was needed. So this legislation that we're asking you to co-sponsor today is going to provide for that, for people to be able to live independently and lead productive and fulfilling lives. So when you visit your legislator, be sure to ask them to sign on and become a co-sponsor. If they're in the House, it's House Bill 444. If they're in the Senate, it's Senate Bill 318. So I'm so happy we got to hear from all of our panel today, all of whom are working to improve the lives of the 2.7 million Pennsylvanians living with brain injury. So next, we're going to go forth and have meetings with each of our elected legislators. Be sure that you grab the handout that, in the back that I can't find right now, but it's the horizontal one. Go to the Brain Injury Coalition table and take 3 of those, which is called the Bundle of Brain Injury Bills, and leave one of those at each office that you visit. At 1 o'clock today, there's going to be a reception with lunch provided by the Brain Injury Caucus in room 8EB. And caucus chairs and staff, we hope that you will drop in and make any further remarks you like and network with us. Then at 2 p.m. in the same room 8EB, there will be a panel moderated by Bridget Lowry. Bridget, would you raise your hand and wave? She's at that table back there. She's the co-chair of the Pennsylvania Brain Injury Coalition, and the panel will feature people with lived experience, their family members, and Bridget will be encouraging questions and discussion around these people's presentation and experience. And then we'll adjourn at 3 p.m. today. So that closes out our session in the Rotunda. So I'd like you all to give yourselves a big hand and thank you for coming. Okay, thank you everybody.